All right, welcome to another deep dive, everybody. Today we're strapping on the gloves, stepping into the ring, metaphorically speaking, of course, and we're unpacking the fundamentals of boxing.
Sounds fun. Should I be scared?
Maybe a little.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. Our guide for this deep dive is Fighting Fit, Boxing Workouts, Techniques, and Sparring by Doug Verner and Alan LaChica. And whether you're a complete beginner or just looking to brush up on the essentials, consider this your express ticket to understanding what makes this sport tick.
That's a great way to put it. We're going to be getting down to the bare bones of boxing, no pun intended, so you can walk away with a solid foundation. No need to get bogged down in overly technical stuff.
Exactly. So we're going straight to the source, extracting those key insights and practical tips and serving them up, just for you. We'll cover everything, the gear, the stance, the footwork, how to throw a punch, even how to not get punched, all the basics. But here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
We're not just going to tell you what to do. We're going to explain the why. Because understanding those underlying principles is what's going to make the difference between just going through the motions and actually moving like a boxer.
100%.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. When you picture a boxer, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Probably the gloves, right?
Gloves, yeah,
That's the iconic piece of boxing equipment.
definitely. But the book, Fighting Fit, kind of throws a curveball right out the gate.
Oh, really?
Because you might think that you need to rush out and buy specialized boxing shoes right away.
Yeah, I was going to say, you would think that. That would be my first guess, too. Yeah.
Right. But the authors are like, hold up, not so fast.
Interesting. So what do they say?
A good, solid pair of athletic sneakers, the kind that fit well and you already own, will work just fine, especially when you're starting out.
That's a relief. Saves you some money up front.
It does. It does. Now, if you're training in a gym, the only thing you got to watch out for is to make sure those sneakers have non-marking soles.
Right, you don't want to be scuffing up the gym floor.
Exactly. And if you want a little extra ankle support, you can always go with high tops, but that's really a matter of preference.
Makes sense. So when do the gloves come into play?
Patience, my friend. Patience. Before we even talk about gloves, there's something even more fundamental for protecting your hands, and the book really hammers this home. Wraps.
Oh, hand wraps. Right. Of course, those are essential.
Absolutely non-negotiable. They support all the tiny bones in your hands and help prevent injuries. You don't want to be throwing punches without them.
So what kind of wraps are we talking about here?
So you've got your Velcro wraps, which are super convenient, easy on, easy off. And then you've got those longer Mexican-style wraps. The kind that a lot of pros prefer because they provide that extra layer of snugness and protection. And they're surprisingly affordable, like $6.
Not bad. Not bad at all. So now can we talk gloves?
Now we're talking gloves. But here's where it gets interesting. Fighting Fit makes a really clear distinction between gloves you use for hitting the bag and gloves you use for sparring. And trust me, you do not want to mix those up.
Okay, so why the separate gloves? I mean, a glove's a glove, right?
Not quite. Think of it this way, right? Bag gloves are your weapon of choice when you're working on power and technique on a stationary target, like, the heavy bag. Sparring gloves, on the other hand, are all about safety, both for you and your partner. They're designed to cushion those blows and prevent injuries during those, lively exchanges.
Gotcha. So two completely different purposes. What about bag gloves specifically?
So bag gloves generally have minimal padding,
Yeah.
just enough to protect your knuckles when you're wailing on that bag. Fighting Fit recommends going for a decent pair of 12-ounce leather gloves with a good, secure Velcro strap, and you're looking at about $50 to $60 for a quality pair.
Not too bad. And what about the padding itself? Is there a difference between the padding in bag gloves versus sparring gloves?
Absolutely. Bag gloves have denser padding to give you feedback on your punches, so you can feel the impact.
Right.
Sparring gloves, they have softer, more dispersed padding, like almost a pillow, to absorb the shock and protect both fighters.
Makes sense. Safety first, especially when you're sparring.
Absolutely. You're not going to skimp on something that's protecting you from injury, right? All right, so we've got our hands protected. What about something to actually hit? What about the good old heavy bag?
Oh, the heavy bag. A classic for a reason. The book breaks down the basics. A standard heavy bag, you're looking at about 14 inches in diameter, 42 inches tall, weighs around 70 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, they're not messing around.
No kidding.
And they come in a variety of materials: canvas, vinyl, leather. And the filling can be hard or soft, depending on your preference.
Yeah.
The soft fill usually has an extra layer of foam for a bit more cushion. But the key takeaway here is to make sure your bag comes with the hanging hardware.
Right, so you can set it up safely.
Absolutely. Don't want that thing crashing down on you.
No, you don't. All right, so moving up from hands, we've got to protect that noggin. Headgear seems like a pretty obvious necessity.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Fighting Fit really emphasizes that. You want headgear that offers maximum coverage, protecting your chin, your cheeks, your forehead. Some headgear even has a face bar for that added protection, although the book does mention that it can make breathing a bit more difficult. But when it comes to safety, a little less airflow might be worth the peace of mind.
Right, you're not running a marathon, you're boxing.
Exactly. And when it comes to a secure fit, the book recommends headgear with lace straps. Just like with boxing shoes, you don't want it slipping around blocking your vision in the middle of a spar.
No, not good.
You're looking at about $70 for a good, solid, protective piece of headgear.
Okay, so hands, head, what about teeth? A mouth guard seems pretty crucial too, right?
Oh yeah, no question about it. The book stresses the importance of a mouth guard to prevent any kind of serious dental injuries or even jaw injuries. And luckily, you don't need to break the bank for a good one. They talk about the boil and bite type, which you can find for under $10. They work really well. You just boil it in water for a bit to soften it up, and then you bite down on it to mold it to your teeth. It's simple, it's affordable, and it's vital.
Can't argue with that. So what about protection below the belt?
Yeah, you definitely don't want to neglect that area. The book recommends a good girdle-like protector, which offers more comprehensive coverage for your groin, your hips, even your kidneys, compared to, just a standard jockstrap and cup.
Okay, so full coverage is key.
Exactly. These cost around $45, and the book even points out that for female boxers, there are specially designed protectors to cater to their needs.
That makes sense. So we've got all our gear laid out. Where's the best place to actually buy this stuff? Earlier, you were saying not to go to just any big box store.
Yeah, the book actually cautions against buying from general retailers. The quality often just isn't there, and you don't want to compromise on safety and durability.
Right.
They recommend going with reputable catalog retailers that specialize in boxing equipment. Places like Everlast, Ringside, Tidal. They even suggest calling these companies up to get their catalogs, which in today's digital age sounds a bit old school, but hey, it gets you the right gear.
It's worth it. Quality gear from specialists. So now we're suited up, we're ready to rumble.
Let's get into the ring.
Let's do it, metaphorically, of course.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin?
Well, Fighting Fit takes us straight to the heart of boxing, the foundation upon which everything else is built. The stance.
Okay, the stance. I'm picturing, Rocky, fists up, ready to go. Is that about right?
It's a good starting point, but there's a bit more nuance to it. The book describes the boxer's stance as this kind of coiled readiness. It's all about positioning yourself sideways to your opponent, presenting your non-dominant shoulder as your primary target. So if you're right-handed, your left shoulder's forward and vice versa.
Okay, so we're sideways, not square on. What about the feet?
So your feet are roughly shoulder-width apart. Now, if you're leading with your left side, your right heel should line up with your left toe. And once you've got that alignment, you want to swivel both feet about 45 degrees towards your target.
45 degrees, that seems pretty specific. Why is that so important?
It's all about maximizing your power and mobility. That 45-degree angle allows for optimal rotation of your hips and torso when you're throwing punches. It's like winding up a spring ready to unleash that energy.
Interesting. So we're turned slightly, feet shoulder width apart. What else?
Now, bend your knees slightly. You don't want to be stiff-legged. You need that springiness, that ability to move quickly in any direction. A slight bend at the hips, too, while keeping your back relatively straight. And lift that back heel just a bit off the ground.
Okay, so I'm starting to feel this coiled, ready-to-pounce kind of posture. What about the upper body?
So, elbows tucked in close to your sides, protecting your ribs. Forearms raised, about chin to cheek level, guarding your head. Your hands are up, palms facing inwards, forming a natural shield. The key here is to be relaxed, not tense, yet always ready to strike or defend. Like a coiled spring.
Right. It's that constant readiness, isn't it?
Exactly. The book really emphasizes the importance of finding that sweet spot between relaxation and alertness. You don't want to be stiff or you'll tire out quickly, but you also don't want to be caught off guard.
So we've got the stance down. Now, how do we actually move around the ring? I mean, boxing's not just about standing still and trading punches.
Oh, absolutely not. Fighting Fit actually describes good boxing footwork as almost like dancing.
Dancing. Really?
It's all about that smooth, coordinated movement, that rhythm and timing. And while those knockout punches might steal the show, your legs and feet are the unsung heroes. They're the engine that drives your offense and defense.
That's interesting. I never really thought about footwork being so crucial in boxing. So what are the basic steps? How do you move effectively?
So to move forward, you always step with your lead foot first, followed by the rear foot. To move back, you do the opposite. Rear foot first, then the lead foot. Sideways movement is all about leading with the foot on the side you want to move towards, and then quickly bringing the other foot to maintain that shoulder width distance. And here's the cardinal rule. Always maintain the integrity of your stance.
What does that mean exactly?
No overstepping, no crossing your feet, and never ever bring your feet completely together. You'll lose your balance and become an easy target. Keep those steps short and controlled, almost like you're sliding along the floor. Think smooth, not jerky.
Okay, so smooth, controlled steps. What about changing directions?
So that's where pivoting comes in. You use your lead foot as a pivot point, and you sweep your rear foot around it, keeping it close to the ground. This lets you quickly shift your angle of attack or defense while maintaining your balance and staying ready to react.
Gotcha. So we've covered the stance and footwork. Now, the book also talks a lot about rhythm. I'm guessing it's more than just bouncing on your toes.
It's way more than just bobbing and weaving. It's about finding that internal beat that dictates your movements, your attacks, your defense. A good boxer is never truly static. There's always this subtle motion that keeps them primed and ready to explode into action. Fighting Fit describes two main types of rhythm.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What are they?
First, you've got the long rhythm. This is more of a mellow, flowing back and forth bounce between your feet. Picture Muhammad Ali, classic outside fighter, use this constant motion, circling his opponent, probing with jabs, wearing them down. Then there's the short rhythm, which is more aggressive, compact, side-to-side movement, often with more head and shoulder movement thrown in. Joe Frazier, the quintessential inside fighter, he used the short rhythm masterfully. Always moving, always a difficult target to hit.
And how does head movement fit into all of this?
Head movement is essential, regardless of which rhythm you're using. The book stresses that your head should be moving about the width of your head with each subtle shift in your stance. This constant motion makes you incredibly difficult to hit cleanly. And they really encourage you to practice both rhythms until they feel natural, almost like second nature. Just like with dancing, you want to find that flow. And remember, no exaggerated boogie when you're actually throwing punches or taking steps. It's all about controlled, efficient movement.
Right. Stay in motion with intent, but don't get too fancy.
Exactly. Now, developing this kind of inner beat takes time and practice. And one of the best ways to do that is to practice in front of a mirror. This way you can see your movements, make adjustments, and really get a feel for that smooth, rhythmic flow. And you know what? Good form not only makes you a better boxer, it also builds that crucial sense of self-confidence you need in the ring.
It all starts with the basics, right? Mastering the fundamentals.
Absolutely. And speaking of fundamentals, let's move on to the tools of the trade. The punches.
All right, let's get to the fun part. How to throw a punch. Let's break it down.
Now, before we even get into specific punches, the book starts with something that seems really basic, but is often overlooked, especially by beginners. Making a proper fist.
Interesting. I mean, how hard can it be to make a fist?
You'd be surprised. So many people get it wrong, and it can lead to hand injuries if you're not careful. The key is to make sure your thumb is tucked securely below your fingers, not curled inside.
Right. I've seen people do that. It just looks wrong.
It is wrong. It puts your thumb at risk. And here's another interesting point the book makes. You shouldn't have a death grip on your fist all the time.
Really?
You want to keep your hands relaxed, ready to clench at the moment of impact. You only tighten that fist right before you connect with the target, and then you immediately relax it as you retract your hand back to your guard. This conserves energy and makes your punches much faster.
It's all about efficiency, right? No wasted movement or tension.
Exactly. Now, before we dive into the punches, the book does have a quick note for all our lefties out there, the southpaws.
Of course, got to make sure everyone's included.
Right. So for clarity, the book focuses on instructions for right-handed fighters, who typically lead with their left foot and left hand. If you're a southpaw, just reverse the instructions. So left becomes right and vice versa.
Easy enough. So let's start with the most fundamental punch in boxing, the jab. The book calls it, and I quote, the single most important punch in boxing.
No arguments there. The jab is thrown with your leading hand, your left hand if you're right-handed, and it goes straight from your chin to the target, no fancy curves or hooks. As you extend your arm, your fist rotates about a quarter to a half turn, ending with your palm facing down or slightly inwards.
And the clench, it's not like a constant clench.
Right. You clench gradually as you extend your arm. It's fully clenched at the moment of impact, and then immediately relax as you snap your hand back to your guard.
Okay, so it's a very controlled snapping motion. But why is the jab so important? It's not really a knockout punch, is it?
Not typically, no. But that doesn't mean it's not powerful. It's your most versatile punch. It's quick, it keeps your opponent at bay, it sets up those power punches, and it can wear them down over time.
You're using it constantly, basically.
Exactly. You score points with it, you measure distance, you disrupt your opponent's rhythm, you create openings for those big power punches.
It's like a Swiss Army knife of punches.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And, the book even says it's incredibly effective in a self-defense situation.
Really?
You can throw a jab without compromising your balance too much, and a well-placed jab can definitely make an attacker think twice.
That's good to know. So key takeaways for the jab.
It goes straight from chin to target, no wind-up, no telegraphing. It should have that snapping quality. And the hand comes right back to guard after impact. Practice it constantly, with and without stepping forward, and always incorporate that smooth footwork and rhythm we talked about earlier.
All right, moving on to the big guns, the power punch.
Yeah.
The straight right for right-handed fighters.
Now we're talking. This punch comes from your rear hand, your right hand if you're right-handed, and it's a straight shot, just like the jab, but this time the power comes from your whole body, not just your arm.
Okay, so how do you generate that power?
It's all about rotation. As you throw the punch, your torso rotates, and your rear foot pivots powerfully, driving your weight forward. You should feel those back muscles engaging, adding to the force of the punch.
So it's a coordinated movement, everything working together.
Exactly. You accelerate through the punch, your right heel pivots outward, and just before impact, you clench your fist tight. And as always, you snap that hand right back to your guard.
So it's not just about arm strength, it's about using your whole body.
Precisely. Now, the book advises using your straight right strategically. It's best thrown after a jab or as a counterpunch when you see an opening.
So it's more of a precision strike, not something you just throw wildly.
Right. It's about timing and accuracy. And the key elements are that straight trajectory, no telltale windup, a rapid acceleration, a tight clench just before impact, and that immediate snap back to guard.
Okay, now for a punch that sounds a bit more complex, the left hook.
Ah, yes, the left hook. The book calls it a legendary punch. It's got that beautiful arching trajectory, but it's also the most misunderstood punch for beginners.
Really? Why is that?
People often think it's just a big arm swing, but that's a recipe for disaster. The left hook is an inside power punch, which means it's most effective at close range, and the power comes from your legs and core, not your arm.
Okay, so it's not just about swinging wildly. How do you do it correctly?
The movement starts with the shift of your weight to the left. Your left elbow comes up about parallel to the floor, creating that classic hook shape. Now, how you rotate your fist depends on the distance. For close-range hooks, your palm might face down. For slightly farther targets, your palm might face inwards.
So there's some flexibility in the technique depending on the situation.
Exactly. But here's the key. The power comes from a sharp, unified pivot of your left foot, your leg, and your torso to the right. Your arm is just the delivery mechanism. Imagine a gate swinging open powerfully.
Okay, so it's like your body is the hinge and your arm is the gate.
Perfect analogy. And the book uses some other great imagery too. They say to imagine crushing peanuts with your left foot as you pivot, and then hugging your opponent high around the neck as you finish the punch. It really helps you visualize the movement.
Those are vivid descriptions.
They are, right. And as with all good punches, there's acceleration, a sharp snap at the end, and an immediate recovery back to your guard. Never let that hook just hang out there.
Right, you'll get countered for sure.
No doubt about it.
Okay, moving on to another classic power punch, the uppercut. The book focuses on the left uppercut, but mentions that the right uppercut is basically the same thing, just mirrored.
Exactly. Uppercuts are primarily used for inside fighting, just like the left hook. And once again, the power comes from your legs and core, not from winding up your arm.
Right. It's a common mistake for beginners to try and muscle it with their arm.
All the time. So for the left uppercut, you'll dip your left shoulder slightly, bringing your elbow close to your hip. Your fist rotates so your palm is facing up. And then, without any big backward movement, you drive the punch upward, using the power generated by the left side of your body.
So it's an explosive upward movement.
Exactly. Acceleration, a sharp snap at the point of contact, and then a quick recovery back to guard. and really focus on that upward drive from your legs and core. Resist the urge to wind up your arm.
It's all about using your whole body, isn't it?
It is. It's about coordinating those movements, generating power from the ground up. Now, the book has some really good punching reminders that apply to all the punches we've talked about.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, remember that all punches are most effective when thrown from a balanced stance. You need that solid foundation to generate power, accuracy, and recover quickly. Punching off balance is just asking for trouble.
Right. You're not going to hit as hard, and you're going to be vulnerable to counter punches.
Exactly. Second, jabs and straight punches. They should be thrown without any preamble. No big windups, no shoulder dips, no telegraphing your intentions.
So it's all about speed and surprise.
Right. Third, all punches should have that snapping quality we talked about. They accelerate quickly, have a sharp finish, and then you immediately bring your hand back to guard. Never leave your punches hanging out there.
It's almost like a whip, right?
Yeah, a good analogy.
Yeah.
And finally, and this is so important, always keep your non-punching hand in its guard position, even when you're throwing combinations. That hand is your first line of defense.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've learned how to stand, how to move, and how to throw some punches. But as the book repeatedly emphasizes, boxing is more than just offense. Let's talk defense.
Absolutely. You can't win a fight if you can't take a punch. And the book rightly points out that defense is often neglected by beginners who get so focused on hitting things that they forget about protecting themselves.
It's understandable, but it's a crucial part of the sport. So where do we begin with defense?
Well, your first line of defense is actually your stance. That tucked chin, high hands, guarded torso, and balanced posture, that's your starting point.
It's like a mobile shield.
It is.
Yeah.
And of course, incorporating good footwork and head movement makes you even harder to hit.
Right. You're not just standing there like a statue waiting to get punched. You're constantly moving, making yourself a difficult target.
Exactly. And the book reiterates some fundamental defensive principles. Always keep your chin tucked down, your guard up. Keep moving while you're in range. Don't lunge with your punches. Always recover to your guard after you throw a punch. Try not to lean back too much. Aim to trade defensively as much as offensively. Don't let anger cloud your judgment. And try to be unpredictable in your movements.
Okay, so those are the general principles. What about some specific defensive techniques? Let's start with how to deal with a jab.
So when someone throws a jab at you, you bring your right glove up in front of your face, keeping that chin tucked down. And as you do that, you pivot slightly on your right foot and brace your right leg to absorb some of the impact as you catch the jab in your glove.
So you're not just trying to block it with your hand, you're using your whole body to absorb the force.
Exactly. And the book emphasizes that you want to catch the jab near your forehead, not right on your nose. You catch it aggressively, not passively, and then immediately bring your hand back to guard.
So quick, controlled movements. What about more powerful punches, like a straight right?
You definitely don't want to try and catch those with your glove. Power punches like that are best dealt with using a parry. This involves a small, controlled slap with your left glove to the incoming punch, aiming to deflect it off course.
So you're redirecting the punch rather than trying to block it head on.
Right. And a good parry can even throw your opponent off balance, giving you a chance to counter.
Nice. And what about punches to the body? How do you defend against those?
Body shots can be tricky. You could use a sweeping motion with your arm to deflect the punch outwards. And at the same time, you'll want to pivot your body and slide your feet in the opposite direction of the punch, moving out of the line of fire.
So you're both deflecting the punch and evading it.
Exactly. You're making yourself a smaller target and moving away from the danger zone.
Smart. Now, blocks seem like a pretty straightforward way to defend yourself. How do those work?
Blocks are fundamental. As a punch is coming towards you, you'll instinctively flex your knees and lower your stance a bit. This automatically raises your hands and drops your elbows, forming a shield.
So you're not ducking or anything, just lowering your center of gravity and tightening your guard.
Right. It's a subtle movement, but it can be very effective. And as always, you recover immediately back to your stance after the punch has passed.
Now, ducks, those are a bit more involved, aren't they?
They are. Ducks involve bending at the knees and moving your head and upper body under the incoming punch in a V-shaped motion. As you come up on the other side, you're ideally in a position to counter.
So it's a bit riskier, but it can also be very effective if done correctly.
Right. And remember to keep your hands up and maintain eye contact with your opponent throughout the movement.
And the book specifically recommends using ducks primarily for headshots, not for uppercuts or body shots.
Exactly. Those punches are coming from a different angle, so a duck won't be as effective.
What about slips? Those are those small, subtle head movements, right?
Exactly. Slips are small, evasive movements of your head, either to the left or right, just enough to avoid the punch. They require good hand-eye coordination and control of your neck muscles.
So you're essentially just moving your head out of the way at the last moment.
Precisely. You can practice slips with a slip bag or even a weighted rope held at chin level.
Meh.
Focus on moving just your head and neck, not your whole body.
Right. You don't want to overcommit and leave yourself open to other punches.
No, you want to stay balanced and ready to counter. And slips are often considered more efficient than ducks because you don't have to move as much, which means you can recover faster.
Makes sense. So we've covered a lot of defensive techniques. Any final thoughts on defense?
The book has a really good recap of major defensive points, and it's worth repeating them. Keep your eyes on your opponent, guard up, chin down, keep moving, don't lunge, recover quickly, don't lean back, give as good as you get, don't let anger dictate your actions, and be unpredictable.
Sounds like a good mantra for boxing, and maybe even for life in general.
You know, there's a lot of wisdom in those principles that applies far beyond the boxing ring.
I agree. And the book also touches on specific blocks and parries for different punches, like using your forearm to block body shots, your gloves to block uppercuts, and so on.
Right. It's important to have a variety of defensive tools at your disposal so you can adapt to whatever your opponent throws at you.
And finally, there's rocking and stepping back.
Rocking is a sharp, balanced shift of your weight over your stationary feet. It's not about leaning, it's about staying grounded and using your legs to move your upper body. Stepping back is just what it sounds like. A quick step back with your rear foot, followed by a slide of your lead foot to maintain your stance.
Okay, so lots of ways to create distance and avoid getting hit. Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into the fundamentals of boxing. We've covered so much, from gear to stance, footwork, punches, defense. It's been a whirlwind tour of the basics.
It has. And it's important to remember that these fundamentals, they're not just the starting point. They're the foundation for everything else you'll learn in boxing.
Right. Whether you're training for fitness or for competition, mastering these basics is absolutely essential.
And as the book emphasizes over and over again, mastering these elements takes time, dedication, and attention to detail. It's about drilling these movements until they become second nature, ingrained in your muscle memory.
So it's not just about learning the moves, it's about practicing them until they become instinctual.
Exactly. You want to reach the point where you don't even have to think about it. Your body just reacts.
And you should now have a really solid understanding of the fundamentals, which will allow you to approach further learning and exploration of the sport with much more clarity and confidence.
Absolutely.
Now, here's something to think about. As we've been discussing these fundamentals, I've been struck by how much they apply not only to boxing, but to life in general.
Oh, yeah, totally.
You know, that balance, that readiness, that efficient movement, those are qualities that are valuable in so many different areas.
I agree. It's about being prepared,
Yeah.
being adaptable, being able to react quickly and effectively to whatever challenges come your way.
Exactly. So, which of these fundamental areas that we've talked about, the stance, the movement, the punches, the defense, which one resonates most with you right now and why? That's something to ponder until our next deep dive.
It is. Food for thought.
Food for thought indeed. See you next time.
See ya.